Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today's a big day. I'm finally doing the big cannabis comparison and I'm really excited about this. I'm just gonna jump right into it. If you guys wanna see any of the previous videos with details on each one of these companies, there's 6 companies, I will leave links to all those videos in the description. If you guys are new here, my name is Sean and I do personal finance and investing videos. If you guys are into that sort of thing, please consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's just jump into this table and let's start talking about these companies and what might be the best investment if you're looking at this sector. Let's go. All right, so here is the table. It's a lot of information to look at once, but we'll just go through this section by section. We'll talk a little bit about it. Just off the top, so you guys know, the dollars are in USD. I just had to pick one currency to keep things consistent. So USD is what you're seeing here. These are all prices as of the end of the day on Monday, July 26th. So just so you guys know, I realized Tilray is gonna have an earnings call this week, but I wanna get this video out soon. The rest of the companies have their earning calls in like the start of August. So I just wanna get this video out before the long weekend. And if you guys are interested and you wanted me to do maybe an update for Tilray, I can do that after their earnings report comes out. So another thing to note, remember that Tilray and TruLieve have both taken over or acquired companies. So those revenues are not reflected in this. These are all numbers from the last quarterly reports for each of these companies. So just keep that in mind as we go through it. Okay, so jumping into the first part of the table here, we can see that TruLieve actually has the highest stock price, like cost per share, which is interesting, and so does Green Thumb. And there's kind of a reason behind that, which we'll get into. Market cap's a little bit across the board, but it's worth noting Canopy right now the highest at 7.71 billion, and Cresco is the smallest at 2.5. And we talked about how Cresco is kind of the smaller of the US players. Earnings per share, a little bit across the board, kind of related to the stock price here, but all of these companies are negative earnings per share right now, so not really profitable, except for TruLieve, which we'll talk about, in Green Thumb. One last thing before we move on is I put an analyst price target here, and it's interesting because they are the analysts price this entire sector to have an upside, where all these companies are looking to improve. If you ask an analyst, they'll all improve in 12 months time. Interesting to note that Tilray has maybe the least improvement. TruLieve, even though it has the highest stock price, still could double according to analysts. I'm also thinking CURLF and Cresco Labs have a good upside to them as well. So for me, this doesn't really help make the decision yet, but it's good to know that there's positive outlook from analysts on this sector. All right, so before we get into this next part of the table, I just want to explain where I'm saying 2020 net revenue. I've actually added some dates across the top because these companies report their earnings at different times, and their annual earnings end on different times of the year. So I've included the dates just to show you. For example, Tilray, their annual report ended on May 31st. So when I say 2020 net revenue, I'm actually talking about the last 12 months ending on May 31st, and that's the revenue that they've generated. So this is why I didn't include Aphria numbers under Tilray or Harvest numbers under TruLieve, because they are acquiring the companies at different times. They're at different stages of the acquisition, so I just needed to keep it really basic right now. So if we look across the board, we can see CURLF has the highest revenue being generated out of all of these companies, which is, one of the top 2, let's call them US players. Across the board, the year-over-year net revenue is going up for all of these companies. Cresco Labs happens to be maybe the highest grower in the year-over-year net revenue. But what I thought was really interesting in this part of the table was that you've got a player such as Cresco, which is, by comparison, small. It's only in 10 states, but still has a really decent revenue when compared to even its American counterparts. And I wanted to also look at how a company like TruLieve is generating $521 million in revenue, and then you compare that to a company like Tilray, which is, across multiple continents and generating a very similar number. So this just demonstrates how the US market is so profitable for these companies and why it's such a big deal. And we'll talk about strategy a little bit later in this video. I've done the same thing here. I'm showing you the last quarter of revenue and then comparing it to the quarter previous, just to show you the trends. And so if you see 2 green squares here, it's kind of indicating that the trend is going the right way, both from the last quarter to this quarter and from last year to this year, which are just indicators to show you the way that things are trending for these companies. The next section of this table is the same sort of comparison, but I'm talking about earnings. I should say all these numbers were taken from Yahoo Finance. So the 2020 earnings are the same as the net income. So you can see here a lot of negative numbers. Tilray, -84, Canopy with a huge negative number there. And what really the ones to look at are the two that are positive, which is TruLieve and Green Thumb. They've also got, they're trending in a positive direction for their year-over-year earnings, and so is CURLF in that regard. And then I did a similar comparison in the last quarter, and from quarter to quarter, Canopy, CURLF, and Cresco Labs are all trending in the right direction. TruLieve actually fell a little bit in their earnings from Q3 to Q4, so not a huge concern, but I just added these colors to help you kind of see the positives in these companies. And finally, we'll go to kind of the fundamentals portion. And I know for growth companies, we don't typically look at all of these ratios, but I've put them down just for knowledge, I guess. When you compare these companies to a lot of the S&P 500 companies, you won't get ratios that attractive as the ones of those big, established, really successful companies. But I like putting this in because ratios are a good comparison when you're looking at a sector, just to, you know, maybe help you make a decision on if you want to put your money in one company in cannabis, like maybe this helps you out. So I put the price to sales ratio, this is the trailing 12 month, just to compare. All of these companies are fairly good, but I like seeing the bookmarks. So Canopy Growth being on the highest end and Cresco Labs being on the lowest end. So what that means is compared to the price of the stock, Cresco Labs based on its sales would be one of the better bargains here. I also put the price to book ratio. This again can be all over the map. Interesting to note that TruLieve and Canopy, the two Canadian companies, have the lowest price to book ratio while their stock price is quite high, but my assumption is they have a higher book value with all the different facilities across different countries, so that's contributing to a low price to book ratio. Current ratios across the board all are positive. So remember, current ratio is your assets over your liabilities. I also put some percentages here because we talk a lot about the road to profitability for these companies. So profit margins a little bit all over the place. Tilray furthest away, let's say, and then you've got Canopy that's, you know, close to zero and breaking even, but TruLieve and Green Thumb are actually in the positives and in the positives consistently, and looking the healthiest when it comes to profit margins, even though they're quite young and smaller companies, let's say. Operating margins, again, positive for the US companies and negative for the Canadian ones. Operating cash flow, positive for the US companies and negative for the Canadian ones. One more bit of information I thought would be interesting is just to compare the stock performance of all of these companies on one chart. So I'll put that up for you right now. And if we look at the 5-year, it really shows us how TruLieve has doubled the second place, which is Cresco Labs. TruLieve at 1200%, Cresco Labs at 600%. But let's zoom in a little bit. We'll go to the 2-year chart, and that one's showing us that TruLieve and Green Thumb are actually the top two. All of them still doing well except for Canopy Growth and Tilray, interestingly enough. And then let's go to the 1 year, and we are Green Thumb in first, TruLieve in second. Year to date, you can see the spike in Tilray. I believe that is when it was part of the Wall Street Bets thing. Now TruLieve is kind of in first up here within the 50s, and next up we have Green Thumb. If we go to the 6 month, I kind of just like to zoom in this way. We have Green Thumb and then CURLF and Cresco together, and then in the last 3 months, it's kind of all over the map, but you could see some are actually in the negatives. Most are in the negatives, with the exception of Green Thumb, which is positive. Okay, so stop here right now. I am going to leave another link for you to go in the description, or if you go to the community tab on my homepage, you'll see a post where I've put a poll. And before I get into what I think, I would love if you guys would go and vote for what you think would be your favorite in the 6 that we've covered on this video. So go and do that, hit pause, go and do that, come back, and I'll get into the next section where I talk about what I think. Okay, so my take on this, on which one I would maybe call the winner, before I look at the stock price and whether it's worth it, it really comes down to just the strategy. And you have 2 companies here that are Canadian going for the international expansion while they wait for the US to federally accept and regulate cannabis, which, like I've said in other videos, we don't really know how long this is going to take. Could be a year or so. You've also got 3 companies that are purely in the States that are TruLieve, CURLF, and Green Thumb. 2 of those 3 have really positive, healthy numbers, and TruLieve and Green Thumb are already demonstrating that they're cash flow positive and that they're profitable, which is why those two are showing that they have a higher stock price and are doing quite well and performing the best. Now you also have CURLF, which it's kind of a hybrid. It's focused on the US, but sort of slightly getting a foothold in Europe as well. So that might be a nice middle ground if you're thinking on a strategy basis, I'd like to get a bit of both, but only have one company. CURLF would probably be your pick. But I keep going back to just those numbers from the revenue and how a smaller US-focused company is generating just as much cash as a company that operates in both Canada and Europe. Now remember, Canada has about 1/10 of the population as the US, so it sort of makes sense that a smaller company can make more money. And I would imagine that these companies will be able to expand a lot faster than a Canadian company working through regulations for the first time, even when cannabis does get accepted on a federal level. Of course, I would love to see a Canadian company do well, but other than maybe acquiring one of the other businesses very quickly off the get-go, I don't see how they would have an advantage over the US companies that are already set up in the States. So for those reasons, I kind of see these as two groups. You've got TLRY and Canopy that are doing the kind of a global approach, expanding to Europe. I probably would pick Canopy as probably having my favorite strategy. And that's because they still have a little bit going on with deals that with brands that are in the US. So I think they're just better positioned to get into the US possibly than TLRY, but that's just my opinion. Now, as an investor looking to try and make money off this thing, that's probably not my favorite group to be in. I'd like to be in the group with TruLeaf, CURLF, Cresco, and Green Thumb that are more focused on the US. And of those companies, I just would go to the numbers, and I think TruLeaf and Green Thumb still having quite a bit of upside according to analysts, but also have demonstrated that they're profitable, they know what they're doing, they're taking care of their profit margin, and really are just the healthiest of the companies on this spreadsheet. So I know that's probably contributing to why their performance has been so good thus far, and I can totally get why. So those are my top picks in this sector. But again, I'm kind of more interested in what you guys think. I hope this video has kind of like laid out the information for you guys. If it has, please remember to hit the like button. And if you want more comparison videos, let me know. But let me know what you think in the comments. Which one of these is your favorite? Please go and vote on that post in the community post. That would be great. Now, just a quick note before I sign off, I am going to take a few weeks off to try and come up with more ideas, do a little R&R. And if there's anything that you guys want me to cover, please let me know in the comments too. I'm looking for videos that other people would find interesting. The traffic on the channel has been a little bit slow lately, so I'm trying to find what you guys would be interested in. So if you have any ideas, please let me know or message me on Instagram, and we can talk about it there. Anyways, without making this longer than it needs to be, have a great week, guys. Spread the wealth. We'll see you in a couple weeks, and yeah, see you in that one. Bye.